And as always, with us is scientist and Kabbalist Dr. Michael Lightman. Hello. Hello. We studied quite in depth the first chapter and now approached actually one of the most interesting chapters for me because it's very visual. You mean the flood? Yeah, Noah and the Pentateuch. And I'd like to begin with the end of the previous chapter where it says, "And Noah was favored by God." What does it mean to be favorable in the eyes of God? To be favored or not, it all depends on equivalence of form. In spirituality, we don't measure distance in kilometers, meters, microns, or nanos, but according to equivalence of form. Spiritual space is a realm of qualities, and therefore spiritual objects, when they're in equivalence of form, then in the spiritual realm, they have come closer, just like people. If they're similar, they're close to each other. If they differ in qualities, then they're distant from each other. So there are two objects here, Noah and the Creator. Yeah, and because Noah was closest to the Creator in that generation, or from that level of creation that we're talking about here, it means that he was favored by God. What is this quality that God favors in a person? Since the Creator is the absolute quality of love and bestowal, then probably because Noah, from that entire generation, from that entire degree of development that they're talking about, or the entire human desire, was the most progressive and altruistic desire, closest to the Creator. And who said that the Creator is the quality of love and bestowal? How can we prove that? No, we can't prove that. That's why the entire wisdom of Kabbalah is a hidden wisdom. It's a secret wisdom because it's revealed only to those who change their qualities, and to the measure of their equivalence of form with the Creator, they feel Him. And then for them, it's a postulate, and for others, maybe it's only an axiom. So first of all, you have to believe in it? No, you don't have to believe in anything. Kabbalah is a science that does not require a person to believe in anything. It simply offers a person to reveal the upper creation through himself. But a person can say, yeah, but how can I know in advance? You can't know in advance. Only after you start studying, after you become engaged in it. But all the studies are very logical. A person is told about our world. What does it consist of? What elements? How did it develop? What does a person consist of? What desires? Where is his freedom of will? And when a person starts studying the wisdom of Kabbalah, he sees that it's a multifaceted wisdom, and that there's nothing that he has to believe in. And if he keeps advancing, then in him appears an entire system of knowledge that allows him to further reveal the world with the help of logic, and suddenly he starts feeling inside himself the appearance of new qualities that as if extend the boundaries of this world. The world becomes more complex, multifaceted. He starts seeing the forces that work behind everything, that are working behind everything, and this way he tips into this knowledge with his own qualities. And then there's no question about whether to believe or not. Right. The thing is that if a physicist can remain who he is, a Kabbalist can't, because it's impossible to, or it's possible to study the upper world only by changing your qualities. And what happens is that he changes, and therefore appear in him such qualities that bring him closer. He as if starts to converse, to talk on different levels of interaction with the Creator or other souls, other created beings. So we can say that there's like a dialogue with the Creator. Yeah, but it's not an inner dialogue like we imagine, like when you talk to Him or something. What is it then? It's only inside yourself, meaning through all of your qualities, thoughts, desires. It's inside the person himself, where inside himself he feels this part called creator, and as if interacts with him. Is there such a thing like this inner click in a person where he says, yeah, I can hear? Is there such a state? Again, it's not about hearing. It's a level of interacting, something that you feel. Feel, acknowledge, understand, meaning it's me. The Creator isn't felt as something that's outside of me, that's external to me. That doesn't exist at all. But it's only an inner force inside of me. A general understanding, force, quality. And then a person no longer has doubts. No, there's no doubt, because you see that this entire world is a result of the work of this force. And it's really unclear how is it possible to exist without this force altogether. Meaning it's very clear that when this force is hidden and we see only our world, then it's a very limited and temporary perception. When we don't understand what sustains our world and allows it to exist altogether. So it's no longer possible to return to this world if you've already attained this. A person returns many times as if to reload, and then there's this constant change between day and night, a constant change of frames, and this change of frames, pictures, builds the further movement forward. But every time between the different states, there's always, like, you detach from the upper force, and one senses himself only in this world. But it's not a depressive state. There's no such thing in Kabbalah, because a person in advance understands that he's going into a state of night and darkness, despair, partial detachment, and also the state of our world. When you only feel it, you understand that you're feeling only it, and you're not feeling the upper world and the Creator, and therefore this state is called a descent from the upper world. And you don't completely fall out. It leaves an impression from the past, and at the same time, a feeling of advancing toward the future. So the difference is that for you, the Creator already exists and does not disappear. Yes, he's either concealed or revealed, but he's there. And every time, concealed or revealed, more or less, in quality and quantity. So this is something that those that are really depressed don't have. No, there you don't have something like that. That is truly a horrible state. Spiritual states, they're all for the better, they're all good. A person starts tasting the future light from within the darkness, like a hungry person that knows that up ahead there is a great meal and he's happy because he's hungry. Okay, this was a short blitz in order to come to this chapter, and this is how the following chapter begins. This is the account of Noah. Noah was a righteous man, blameless among the people of his time, and he walked faithfully with God. What does it mean to walk? Meaning that he was in spiritual motion, in constant search, in a constant process toward the Creator. Okay, so what is motion then? Motion or movement is a constant aspiration to change yourself and to become closer and closer to the upper force. How can I change myself with the help of the upper force in order to become more existent in the qualities of bestowal? He continues and says, Noah had 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Yefet. Now the earth was corrupt in God's sight and was full of violence. God saw how corrupt the earth had become, for all the people on earth had corrupted their ways, and God said to Noah, I am going to put an end to all people, for the earth is filled with violence because of them. I am surely going to destroy both them and the earth. So make yourself an ark of cypress wood, make rooms in it, and coat it with pitch inside and out. So there's lots of information here. First of all, he has 3 sons. What is that? Meaning he detached 3 steps, 3 degrees from his previous state. 3 steps are the right, left, and middle lines. That's the birth of the sons. And the sons, they're the next degree to the previous degree called father. And besides that, he scrutinized the bad and good qualities inside himself. All of man's qualities are actually bad. Bad meaning those that he can't right now work with, that he can't use in order to bestow. This is what he means, that the earth was corrupt? Yes, the earth, Eretz in Hebrew, comes from the word ratzon, desire. And therefore he scrutinized all of these desires in himself, and he sorted those that he can advance with. Hezif creates this special envelope out of them, inside which he exists. And I work only with these desires. This is who I am. And all the rest, I cut them off and I don't work with them. They as if don't exist in me. So a person says, these are bad desires. Everyone has these urges to kill someone, to steal something, to do something bad. Later, it's possible to use these desires. There are no bad desires, but right now, they are such that I don't know how to use them for the better. And afterwards, maybe I will be able to. So in the meantime, you put them aside. Yes, I don't use them. The main thing is to sort those desires that I can use correctly and to use them. And if I do that, then I advance quickly. Meaning a person's entire work is to sort these desires, analyze all of his desires, and to advance that way, to scrutinize them. And this is what Noah did, and therefore he went into an ark. An ark is like this closed system of desires, qualities that allow him to correctly exist inside himself. It's a closed, goal-oriented system inside a person called ark, or this kind of sphere, box, that's directed only toward bestowal and love. And therefore, there he can gather all of his different desires and corporeal desires, animate desires, as it says, all animals in pairs, everything. But since he could gather them in this ark, in this quality of love and bestowal, and to leave all the rest, meaning this corrupt earth. Earth, from the word desire in Hebrew, all these bad qualities of his that he can't correct right now. Later he will correct them, but because he leaves them behind, he is as if saved. Because he could enter the state called an ark. Ark in the wisdom of Kabbalah is called the quality of binah, the quality of complete bestowal. It's not love yet. It's simply the quality of bestowal, where a person rises above his ego and wants to be free of it. An initial aspiration. Yes, but that allows him to disconnect, like in a hot air balloon, to detach, to be included in something like a mother's womb, like an embryo in his mother's womb. He's also in a kind of ark, meaning all the intermediate phases where we want to disconnect from the past and enter the future, they all go through this state called ubar, embryo. And Noah goes through this state from the past to the future through this ark. It's like being born in the next world. It's all described in the wisdom of Kabbalah, and every person goes through that. Can we say that it's a beginning of a state where a person starts surrounding himself with a certain environment, influence, certain books, certain friends that are advancing with him towards that goal? That's going into that ark? This is absolutely necessary in order to build such an ark. I'd put it this way. These means you talked about books, teacher, surrounding, everything that a Kabbalist builds around himself. They're like this external kind of ark, an environment that keeps him in the right direction, sustains him despite his ascents and descents. He's like flowing. Yes, he creates this kind of sphere around him, and on the other hand, he has to create this sphere on the inside, meaning to connect the internal and external. That's the real ark. Yes, he has to use this external sphere, the books, teacher, his friends. He has to use all that in order to create this kind of sphere inside of him that's called an ark. In Hebrew, ark is teva. If we read it backwards, it reads bait, house. Does it mean anything? No. An ark is not a house. A house is already a home, a temple, everything that's created by man in order to be able to exist in it while standing on the ground. A house stands on the ground. It has a firm foundation. Man creates it. It's not under the governance or control of any forces of nature, not influenced by waves. Right. And ark, teva, it's like the story about Moses, where he was put on the waters of the Nile when he was only born. An ark is a person's coming out of his previous egoistic state where he ascends, but he's not yet in control of the previous degree. He enters it, he's completely detached, as if this is me. That he wants to ascend from the past, he as if wants to cleanse himself, and therefore the entire process is called the process of cleansing. Why is the ark divided into sections? Well, first of all, it's divided into 4 parts, because in every desire there's the still, the vegetative, animate, and human nature. And this is why it's divided this way. And this is how a person sorts his desires. And besides, it's not only that he sorts them. In the meantime, you still can't work with them. He can't yet connect the desire with its direction, aspiration. What we call kli and masach, vessel and light, the intention that directs. And therefore he takes a pair of each, which are the male and female parts, and that's how you advance. And after we detach from the bad usage of all the desires that are in the egoistic direction, then there appears the altruistic direction, meaning those male and female parts are already in a new state, on a new degree of desire, where they will generate good future actions. Is it possible to imagine the ark as a person's soul? It is the soul. All of the person's desires and qualities put together. Only it could be not yet corrected, like before the flood, with the desire to correct, where a person takes all of his desires and puts himself under the influence of the upper light, upper force, yields, concedes to it, and then he goes through that degree from his egoistic state into an already altruistic one, the quality of bestowal. And it says, I am going to bring flood waters on the earth to destroy all life under the heavens. Every creature that has the breath of life in it. Everything on earth will perish, and I will establish my covenant with you. And you will enter the ark, you and your sons and your wife and your sons' wives with you. You are to bring into the ark 2 of all living creatures, male and female, to keep them alive with you. Meaning, after a person analyzes his desires and qualities and wants to really direct them toward becoming like the Creator, towards bestowal, to rise above their egoistic usage, he starts understanding how to continue doing it from the inside. There's no like voice that you hear from above. It all comes from inside yourself, because the Creator, Boré in Hebrew, consists of the words Bo'ureh, come and see, that a person comes and reveals him inside himself, and then he knows what to do. Meaning there are those desires that he can't take with him and he cuts them off, and that part that he can advance with, he collects it all together. He and his wife and his aspirations and desires and everything, they're called the male and female parts. They all aspire forwards in all the rest of his parts, meaning the desires on the levels of the still, vegetative, and the animate, he gathers all of them, all of these aspirations, and goes into this phase called the flood. Why does he want to destroy the earth by a flood and not by something else? To burn, for example. A flood is a correction. This is the only thing that the Bible talks about. Only about corrections. There are also no punishments. What we read about as punishments are actually corrections, and sometimes it's not only a correction, but it's also a reward. It's simply that we don't exactly understand what does it say there. We don't grasp these things correctly. So the flood that covers the entire earth and destroys everything on it, besides that which went into Noah's Ark, it actually corrects everything this way, meaning water, the quality of bestowal, covers the entire earth as if puts to death all those egoistic desires, forcefully acting upon them because a person is incapable of working with them. Meaning actually what happens is that a person determines, chooses several desires in himself and says, okay, in these desires, by these desires I can bestow, I can be connected with others in a good way, I can be altruistically directed towards everything and nature and so on. And these, I can't work with them. I want to get rid of them, for them to die, not to exist. And so that this force of bestowal from above, this cleansing force, will put them to death in me. It's actually a correction. Everything that goes on with the flood. And afterwards appear these forces already after they're cleansed, after the flood, and a person starts working with them on the next level. But I need to want it. Of course, nothing happens from above. No single action until a person himself wants for it to happen. Nothing. How do you want it? This is what the books and the group and the studies exist for, where a person's permeated by it. He starts seeing a breathing creation around him that's made up of these transitions from the egoistic and altruistic, due to which everything moves forward, all of these metamorphoses that happen all around the world. And then gradually he starts longing for it to happen. And if I don't want it yet, you'll be forced to. Is that good? There's no other way to do it. How can a person want it? Convince me, say that it's good for me. Why strike me? So I have to talk to you softly. Yeah, tell me this and this might happen. No, this isn't our way. Our path is very simple. Nature, or the Creator, which are one and the same, needs to force us, for us to stop being blind kittens, and for us to want to rise above ourselves. And if we're blind, then we don't see anything. We can't rise from this state. And the state that we're talking about is altruistic. We can't even imagine that it's good for us in any way, and that it's possible altogether. And therefore, you can force a person to go there only by way of that he feels suffering in his current egoistic state. Will I later say thank you for these sufferings? Yes, you'll see them as a necessary component of your development. This suffering isn't actually caused by some suffering from above, but this suffering happens because from above you already have to rise to the next degree, spiritual degree, and you're being stubborn. You're like a bull. And this way, this force wants to push you toward good, and you're being stubborn. You resist it by your inner ego, and the contradiction between these two forces, between the force of dynamic development and the direction of altruism, suppose, and your ego that resists, this is what creates this pressure that's felt as suffering. So any suffering, no matter which, any suffering, I was bit by a mosquito up to the point of death is a result of the incompatibility between the forces of advancement and the force of your resistance. So what do I have to do when I feel suffering? Find out what their source is and correct yourself. You have to hasten the speed of your development in order for it to match the speed that's required of you. So this thrust, it has to, it's in order for you to harmoniously advance with the force that's developing you. And this force is developing everyone. So all of us are more or less suffering, and there's nothing that you can do here. So I have to run in front of the bullet, to run at the same speed. Even faster? Why not? If you see that you're advancing towards good, why not faster? And when does this advancement suddenly stop? When you completely include all of your desires into this motion and you're included in a state of complete correction. Then your movements are in complete similarity with this motivating force, and you're doing everything for its sake, and then you determine your movements, your motion, and then you're completely free. You dictate as if to the Creator what to do. Can you dictate to the Creator? If you're ahead of Him and you determine that this is better and your actions are correct, then it's called the next generation that you create out of yourself, and it's higher than the previous one. Meaning you are master of the universe, of the whole of creation, and you're even master over the Creator, and this is the most preferable state for Him. And this is described as, my sons have defeated me. And he wants it. Yeah, like any father who wants for his son to be more successful than he is. And this is what you want from the state of love. And therefore, you're proud of it, you enjoy it. For you, it's your continuity. Even in our world, we understand this feeling, and all the more in spirituality. So, we conclude on this optimistic note. Thank you very much for being with us. And what we talked about today is that what the Creator wishes is for us to become even greater than Him, for us to dictate to Him what to do. We'll talk about this more on our future shows. Until next time, all the best.